In this video, I'm going to explain the number one most embarrassing aspect to conservatism and liberalism, and why, as an anti-capitalist socialist, the both beliefs are by and large very similar. The most embarrassing aspect is that both schools of thought accept and think that democracy should only pertain to the political sphere. They completely fail to understand and to analyse appropriately our economic system. They fail to understand that there can be no democracy without workplace democracy, without control, democratic control of our workers, of our means of production, by having them structured in a completely tyrannical, anti-democratic fashion, whereby billions of workers globally are essentially a form of slavery, where they have very little say over their working conditions. They don't elect management, they don't vote on their pay and salaries, they don't have any type of meaningful control of the institutions that they spend most of their life within. And so the idea that you can have democracy when you have a capitalist system which has private companies operating for the profit motive outside the realm of the public's control and outside the realm even of the workers' control, because they're set up in the interests of shareholders. When you have a system like that, you do not have in any meaningful fashion economic planning and decentralized control and worker control. You don't have that. And so the idea that we can have a democracy when all these millions of institutions of these companies in our life are only marginally controlled through contract law and other legislation, but they're not controlled at the company level by workers. They're not. We don't have workers' councils and general assembly, workers' assemblies in every single company, and have different federations of companies be controlled by workers who would elect delegates and representatives. We don't have that. We don't have economic planning in any significant fashion to the fashion that it should be done in a democratic society. So where you have these billions of people that rent themselves to these private tyrannies across the globe without having workplace democracy in the vast majority of them, and when you have them structured, operating for the profit motive, putting the concerns of shareholders and the legal institutional constraint of the company, which is to produce profit and make a profit for shareholders, when you have them structured like that, instead of in the interest of the stakeholders, the workers and the public and the environment, etc., when you have them structured like that, you don't have democracy. But the Tories, well, the Conservatives and the Liberals have nothing to say on this. In fact, they're glad that it is structured like this. They think this is a morally right system, that we should have our workplaces and our economic sphere outside the realm of the vast majority of the public. And that is a total embarrassment and a total disastrous failure of those schools of political thought. It is totally ridiculous that we could have a democracy when it is structured in that fashion, and which is why we cannot. And so that's why only the socialist, communist, anti-capitalist, anarchist school of thought and Marxist, etc., whatever you want to call it, they have understood the system correctly, and they understand that having our economic system in that manner is fundamentally wrong and immoral and fundamentally undemocratic. I've mentioned already about my thoughts on a lot of this, but it has to be pointed out because liberals need to wake up. It is true that conservatism and liberalism are distinctly different in terms of their social beliefs, but overall, because they accept capitalism, they accept the broad structures of capitalism, like the design of our companies, etc. Because they accept that, they fail completely at the first hurdle, because they cannot understand why this is wrong, this system is wrong. Noam Chomsky and other socialists have pointed out for hundreds of years nearly that having workers distinct from the products they produce and the ownership of the companies that they work for constitutes a gross immorality, and it does. And to this day, there's not enough people on the left that point this out. I mean, even with Jeremy Corbyn's premiership, he did not speak enough about this matter, in my honest opinion. Although his manifesto would have been the biggest upheaval and regeneration of working rights in my lifetime, in my honest opinion, it didn't go enough, because he needs to be explaining this to get people of my generation and younger generation involved to change this system. Because when people understand what I've just explained, then they will begin to wake up and realize why this system is so wrong, and how we could have overnight a much better system by implementing basic structures that cooperatives have in Europe, like the Mondragon Corporation, which is broadly a democratic setup where they elect management and they have a general assembly, and the workers' voices and concerns are heard to a much, much greater degree in our system, where we basically don't have workplace democracy and structures to any significant fashion, outside of trade unions, which have unfortunately been completely weakened because of neoliberalism and 40 years and all the effects that that's had. But I thought I'd point this out because people need to understand that conservatism and liberalism, in my view, I consider them of the same school of thought, because they accept capitalism, which needs to be rejected. That's why I'm an anti-capitalist socialist. Whether you want to call me a communist or an anarchist, I don't fully agree that there's that much difference in those schools of thought. We need socialists, anarchists and communists can all understand these facts. Conservatives and liberals need to wake up to these basic facts, because they are facts.